So the Heart Sutra prayer we will use we will contemplate on the meaning of the emptiness while reading the Heart Sutra prayer, and then we will visualize all the obstacles, all the hindrances being obliterated into emptiness. And so we have we have talked about emptiness for quite a while. So whatever understanding of emptiness, whatever level of understanding of emptiness you have, gather that, and then contemplate on that, and read the Heart Sutra prayer. Basically, what we are doing is nothing in this world, nothing in the universe exists independently. Everything exists by depending upon other factors, other forms and factors, other conditions, causes, and so on and so forth. So therefore, nothing exists inherently, and this is what we have to contemplate. So because nothing exists independently, no good things, no bad things, nothing comes independently. Nothing comes into existence independently. Our Buddhahood, our happiness, everything depends on causes and conditions. And similarly, all the negativities that we do not like, we dislike, that we want to abandon, they also come from causes and conditions. Similarly, a universal pandemic like the COVID-19 that is going on is also didn't come out of nowhere. There is a cause, there is a condition, and when the causes and conditions were obstructed, were struck down, the consequences will also decrease. So in this regard, we can have some relief because COVID-19 is not a permanent thing. It did not come out of nowhere. Since it came out of somewhere, it will also go into something or somewhere, because it is dependent upon causes and conditions. And when those causes and conditions were deflected, then the consequence will also be stopped. So in order to decrease our negative karma, we will pray to the Triple Gem in general, and especially we will pray to Mother Tara for her blessing, because Tara is the manifestation, the emanation of the Buddha's blessings, the Buddha's blessings and the Buddha's swiftness. The swiftness and the blessings of all, not just one or two Buddhas, but the enlightened beings in general, all the Buddhas' manifestation. Tara is the manifestation. Tara is the manifestation of all the Buddhas' quality of blessing and swiftness. So therefore, when we pray to the Mother Tara, it is a very effective method of purification and blessing. Many great masters in the past have prayed to have worshipped Mother Tara, and also gained attainments by doing so. And this particular prayer we are doing is actually spoken by Tara herself. So as I said before, there's a short story to this. So the story was that Master Atiśa, the great Atiśa, he is a great practitioner of Mother Tara, and he always worships, prays to Mother Tara whenever. So he got sick one day. He got very sick, and then he asked Mother Tara what to do, and then the instruction was that he has to recite 100,000 praise to the Tara within one day, in one day alone. And the 21 praise to the Tara, which is kind of short, but even that, if you have to recite it by yourself, that's going to take a very long time. So Master Atiśa was a little bit confused, and then asked Mother Tara, because he can meet Mother Tara like face to face. And then Mother Tara said, don't worry, recite this mantra. So it's only 4 lines. He said this is the same as reciting the extensive version of the Tara praise. And then it's actually very beautiful in the sense that in the 4 lines, actually it's kind of like 5 lines if you include the very beginning. When you recite the 4 lines or the 5 lines, you're also reciting the mantra of Tara, which is Om Tara Tutara Ture Soha, is also included in there. So it's a beautiful sort of like combination, and it's a very effective prayer for blessing. Oh yeah. Now let's contemplate on emptiness by reflecting upon interdependency. Not just empty, like ordinary empty, but when we say emptiness, we are talking about the empty nature of inherent existence, which is because things are dependent upon others, they are empty of inherent existence. That's what we have to contemplate on. Oh yeah, let's start with the refuge to the triple gem first. Sangye Jedan Zoye Janam La Janjo Bardo Dane Gyapso Che Dage Jenso Ngebe Senamange Jola Benjire Sangye Jobora Jo Sangye Jedan Zoye Janam La Chanjo Bardo Dane Gyapso Je Dage Jenso Ngebe Senamange Jola Benjire Sangye Jobara Jo Sangye Chedan Zoye Janama La Chanjo Bardo Dane Gyapso Je Dage Jenso Ngebe Senamange Jola Benjire Sangye Jobara Jo. Prajñāpāramitā mantra. No. Yes, this one. Masama jeme shera pare je maye mega namye ngowoni sozo rangi yeje je wan de zomange yumla jazelo Masama jeme shera pare je maye mega namye ngowoni Sozo rangi yeje je wan de zomange yumla jazelo Masama jeme shera pare je maye mega namye ngowoni Sozo rangi yeje je wan de zomange yumla jazelo. Beyond words, beyond thought, beyond description, Prajñāpāramitā, unborn, unceasing, the very essence of space. Yet it can be experienced as the wisdom of our own Rigpa. Homage to the mother of the Buddhas of past, present, and future. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea tang gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Dea da gade gade para gade para sam gade buddhi soha. Deada gade gade barasam gade budi soha. Deada 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 gade barasam gade budi soha. Gyawadi yudo. Nama sanje drupyo den drowa jigyam mali badi zala gebara sho. Okay, next slide please. The Tara. Mo je mo pama jama la chan se lo chan ze jama da de ba to da ra ye ji gwen se mo do de de na ma tam je de la so yi ge je la ra ba de o mo je mo pama jama la chan se Changjian zhemo dade bai mo do da ra ye ji wen se do de de na ma tam je de re ma so wa ye ye jian la ra o mo je ma pa ma zhe ma lan chang ze lo changjian zhemo dade ba do da ra ye ji wen se ma do de de na ma tam je de re so ye ye jian la ran de o mo je ma pa ma zhe ma la chan ze chan zhen zhe ma da de ba mo do da ra ye ji gun se mo do de de na ma tam jian de re so ye ye jian la ran de o mo je ma pa ma zhe ma la chan ze zhang zhe zhe ma da de ba mo do da ra ye ji gun se do de de na ma tam je de re ma so wa ye ye jian la ran de o mo je ma pa ma zhe ma la chan ze zhang zhe zhe ma da de ba mo do da ra ye ji gun se do de de na ma tam je de re ma so wa ye ye jian la ran o mo je ma pa ma zhe ma la chan ze lo chan ze zhe ma da de ba do da ra ye ji gun se ma do de de na ma tam je de re so wa ye ye jian la ra de om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha 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 om da de do re so om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha 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 om da de do re so om da de do re so ha om da de do re so ha om da de do re so om da de do re so ha je zhen zhe ma ke wo qian zha dang kor dang gu zhe ce dang xin gam dang ge ye chen zhe sang bo ji ten zha guan dan dao zuo jiu wo lai zhou. Okay, mandala. Oh yeah, good shit. Thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah. Now we will continue from where we left off last week. So Master Petri Rinpoche's the words of my perfect master. We'll continue. We are covering the sufferings of the human being, human life, and that's where we're going to start. Okay. So now the subject that we're covering today is the aspect of birth. So let me read through the suffering of birth. For human beings here in this world, birth is from the womb. The consciousness of a being in the intermediate state first has to interpose itself into the union of the father's semen and the mother's blood. It then passes through the painful experiences of the various embryonic stages: the round jelly, the viscous ellipse, thick oblong, firm oval, hard round lump, and so on. Once the limbs, appendages, and sense organs have formed, the fetus, trapped inside the dark, rank, and suffocating uterus, suffers like someone thrown into prison. When the mother eats hot food, the fetus suffers pain as if it's being burned by fire. When she eats something cold, it feels as it is being thrown into freezing water. When she lies down, it feels as if buried on the weight of a hill. Her stomach is full, as if trapped between rocks. When she is hungry, as falling from a precipice. When she is about or sits, as if buffeted about by the wind. As the pregnancy reaches term, the energy of karmic existence turns the baby's head downwards, ready to be born. As the baby is pushed down towards the cervix, it suffers as though a strong giant were holding it by the legs and banging it against a wall. As it is forced through the bony structure of the pelvis, the baby feels as though it were being pulled through the hole in a draw plate. Should the opening be too narrow, it cannot be delivered and dies. Indeed, both mother and baby may die during labor, and even if they survive, they experience all the pain of dying. As the great master of Odhiyana, that's Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche, the great master of Odhiyana said, both mother and child go halfway to the land of death, and all the mother's joints except her jaws are wrenched apart. Everything the baby experiences is painful. Dropping down on the mattress as it is born feels like falling into a pit full of thorns. Having the encrusted slime wiped off its back feels like being flayed alive. Being washed clean feels like being beaten with thorns. Being taken onto its mother's lap, it feels like being a little bird carried off by a hawk. Having butter rubbed on the crown of its head feels like being tied up and thrown down a hole. Being put in the cradle is like being put into the mud. Whenever the infant suffers from hunger, thirst, sickness, and so on, all it can do is to cry. So I'm not going to explain much. So it's written quite clearly here. So I'm just going to read the text, and then to save time, I'm just going to read the text. Yeah. From birth onwards, as we mature into our youth, we have the impression of growth and increase, But what is really happening is that our life is getting shorter day by day as we approach closer to death. Yet also in this life, ordinary undertakings, one after another, none of them ever coming to a conclusion, following each other like ripples on water, as all of them are based only on negative actions. Their outcome is sure to be lower rebirths and endless sufferings. So the four great rivers of suffering, old age, birth, aging, sickening, and dying. Birth, of course, first comes at the very beginning, the moment you are born. At the very initial stage of your life, at the start of your life, you suffer, or you go through the suffering of birth. And right after that, right after you were born, the very next second onwards, the very next moment onwards, aging starts. So right after you were born, you have started to age. Right after we were born, we have started getting closer to the death. So aging is not something comes 80 years later or 70 years later. Aging actually starts the moment, the moment right after you were born, we start aging. Once during a teaching, one Kadamba master, when he was explaining this, one of the students got shocked, and he said, "Oh, right after we were born, we start getting aging. We start to age, and that is such a shocking matter for him," he said. And the master said, "That is not a very shocking matter, because we start aging right after we were born. Our aging is gradual. We age by minute, day by day, year by year. So it's gradual. So when you are 8 years old, we can call somebody, oh, that person is old, like that. But if aging is not gradual, if aging is, and if person tomorrow all of a sudden that person is an old person, then we will be really shocked." Oh yeah. So in the monastery, senior monks. So we have this custom to visit all the elderly monks, the senior monks, the abbots, and all the masters, and all the senior monks. Even though they are not our teacher, we would go visit them during the Losar, the New Year. And when we go to the Losar, of course, the youngsters, they would usually they decorate the house and do, make things look beautiful. But when we visit the senior monks, they don't decorate anything. And then they would usually, I remember many of the senior monks telling us, "Oh, there's nothing to celebrate here. We are getting 1 year closer to death." Of course, they don't say this in a sort of an agonizing way of complaining or in a pessimistic way. They just say it in a very satirical way, in a in a very sarcastic way. So they would make jokes out of that. Yeah. So which brings us to our next chapter, which is the aging, old age. So we will go through that now. As we busy ourselves with these inconsequential and ever unfinished worldly tasks, the suffering of old age creeps up on us unnoticed. Little by little, the body loses its vigor. We can no longer digest the food that we like. Our eyesight dims, and we can no longer make out small or distant objects clearly. Our hearing starts to fail, and we can no longer distinguish sounds and speech correctly. Our tongue can no longer taste what we eat or drink, nor articulate properly. Memory fails us, and we lapse into confusion and forgetfulness. Our teeth fall out, so we can no longer chew solid food, and whatever we say becomes an unintelligible mumble. Our body loses its heat, and we can no longer feel warm in light clothing. Our strength declines and we can no longer carry anything heavy. Although we still have a taste for pleasure and enjoyment, we no longer have the energy. As our channels and energies degenerate, we become irritable and impatient. Scorned by all, we become depressed and sad. The body's elements get out of balance, bringing a host of illnesses and problems. We have to struggle with all our movements, like walking and sitting, which have become almost impossible tasks. So on this, Never said, Jazumila sings, 1. You stand yourself up as if pulling a peg from the ground. 2. You creep along as though you were stalking a bird. 3. You sit down like a sack of being dropped. When these three things come together, Granny, you are a sad old woman whose illusory body is wasting away. It continues. 1. From the outside, your skin hangs in wrinkles. 2. From the inside, protrudes bones where flesh and blood have shrunk. 3. In between, you are stupid, deaf, blind, and dazed. When these three things come together, Granny, your face frowns with ugly wrinkles. 1. Your clothes are so ragged and heavy. 2. Your food and drinks is insipid and cold. 3. You sit on your mat propped up with skin on 4 sides. When these three things come together, Granny, you are like a realized yogi being trampled by men and dogs. In old age, when we put both hands on the floor as though we were trying to pull a peg out of hard earth. When we walk, we stay bent over at the waist and cannot raise our heads, and being unable to pick up and put down our feet very quickly, we creep along gingerly like a child stalking a bird. All the joints in our arms and legs are so arthritic that we cannot sit down gradually. Instead, we let our whole weight crash down at once like a gunny sack as its slings breaks. That's the meaning of the first line, Miller song. Second line, flesh washes, as our flesh wears away, our skin becomes our bodies and faces. All our joints are more prominent. Our cheekbones and our other bony protuberances stick out thin. Our memory declines and we become dull-witted, deaf and blind. We cannot think clearly and we feel giddy. That is the second line. Okay. With the decline of our physical vigor, there is little reason for us to want to look our best. So the clothes we wear are always heavy and ragged. That's the third line. The third song by Milarepa. We eat leftovers and have no sense of taste. All the food we eat is cold and insipid. We feel so heavy that it is difficult to do anything. We prop ourselves up in bed on all 4 sides and cannot get up. By that point, our physical deteriorations have brought on depression and terrible mental suffering. All the beauty and brightness of our faces has faded. Our skin is covered in wrinkles, and our forebeds are lined with ugly frowns and of ill humor. Everyone scorns at us, and even if people are stepping over our head, we cannot get up. We no longer react. It is as if we were realized yogis for whom clean and unclean no longer exist. So this is a sarcasm here. Yogis really don't care about this kind of thing. But when you get old, of course, you care about how other people treat you, but you cannot do anything. So externally, you may appear like a yogi, but internally, of course, you're not a yogi. So this is a scornful sarcasm. Is a sarcastic song. Sarcastic yogi song sang by Milarepa. Unable to bear the suffering of old age, we want to die, but in fact, the closer we come to that, the more terrified we are of it. So, the dilemma that we are in, because of the sufferings that we go through, we want to end our life. as we get older, right? But at the same time, all this makes the suffering that we have to undergo in old age not very different from the torments of being in the lower realms, such as the hell realm and the hungry ghost realms.
Okay, now let's continue. Continue with the sickness. When the four elements that make up our body becomes imbalanced, all sorts of illnesses, those of wind, bile, phlegm, and so on, arise. So, according to the Tibetan traditional medicine, all the maladies actually originated from these three things: wind, bile, and phlegm. And wind, bile, and phlegm. They are the physical manifestation of what is actually the ignorance, attachment, and hatred. The wind is the manifestation of attachment. The bile is the manifestation of the physical manifestation of hatred, and then phlegm is that of ignorance. So Tibetan traditional medicine is rooted also in Tibetan Buddhism. So internally we have the three poisons, the so-called three poisons, the ignorance, hatred, and attachment, and out of which comes the physical manifestation of the three internal poisons manifest as wind, bile, and phlegm. And when the wind, bile, and phlegm are balanced, then we are what we know as the unhealthy person. And when there is a little bit shift in the paradigm for the wind, bile, and phlegm, and then we start to get sick of this and that. So according to Tibetan traditional medicine, all our sicknesses comes from originates from the wind, bile, and phlegm. So those of wind, bile, phlegm, and so on arise, and sensations of pain and suffering afflicts us. Oh yeah. A little correction here. I said wind came from attachment. Actually, wind came from anger, hatred, and the wind came from anger, and bile comes from attachment, and phlegm comes from ignorance. So this wind is different from the wind energy, the subtle wind energy we talk about when we do tantric practices. So this is a different wind. So it's the same name but a different thing. In colloquial Tibetan, in everyday talk, when somebody is angry, we say, "Oh, that person's wind is up." That means that person is angry. Oh yeah. Okay, let me just read through. I'm not going to take much time. As soon as the first painful twinges of illness strike, however young we may be in body and mind, however strong and radiantly healthy, however much in our prime, we crumple like little birds hit by a stone. Our strength evaporate. We sink into the depths of our bedding, and any movement, however slight, is difficult. Even to answer when someone asks what is wrong is an effort. Our voice seems to come from deep inside and is hard to get out. We try lying on our right side, then on our left, on our back, or on our belly, but we can never get comfortable. We lose all appetite for food and drinks, and cannot sleep at night. In the daytime, the days seem endless, and at night, the nights seem endless. We have to put up with bitter, hot, or sour medicines, with bloodletting, cautery, and all sorts of other unpleasant treatments. The thought that this illness might suddenly end in death terrifies us. Under the power of morbid influences and our own lack of integrity, we may lose control of both body and mind. And on top of our normal diluted perceptions, we start to hallucinate. Sometimes the sick even take their own lives. People suffering from diseases such as leprosy and epilepsy are abandoned by all and left to contemplate their fate. They are still alive, but it is as though they were already dead. Sick people are usually unable to look after themselves. Their illnesses makes them short-tempered, and they always find fault with what others do for them, how others treat them. They become more and more fuzzy and critical, and if their sicknesses drags on, people get tired of looking after them and no longer do what they ask. The discomforts caused by their diseases torment them continuously. So, lots of bad news for the new year. Why not something pleasant? So unpleasant news on the new year. That's not fair. So the thing is, this is like a diagnosis, you know. So when you know what your problems are, when you know like what sickness, like when you go to the doctor, right? When you go to when you are unwell, something is not right. When you go to the doctor said everything's fine, nothing's wrong, yeah, everything's fine. But anyway, you come home and you still something is not right. You go to the doctor again, another doctor, nobody finds out what's wrong with you, and then you feel depressed. Now imagine that something is not right, but then you go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, this is the cause of your, whatever is troubling you. Oh, you are sick of this and this and this and that for 30 years, for 20 years, for whatever years. You have been diagnosed with that, but you have that malady, that sickness, but nobody was able to diagnose it for you. And then there is a bad news that you have been diagnosed with this and that, but at the same time there is a relief because you find out what is actually causing you to suffer. So this is what we are doing right now. We are finding the causes of what is making us suffer. The root causes. Oh yeah. So do we have any questions?
Yes, Rinpoche. There is one question.
Yeah.
Yes, Rinpoche. So, prostrate to Rinpoche. What kind of practice can we do to ease the suffering from sickness, old age, and death?
What kind of practice or what kind of prayer? What is the question?
What kind of
practice? Okay.
Yeah, that we can do to ease the suffering. So okay. It sounds like the root cause is being human is
right.
Is carrying all this suffering. But what can we do to ease?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, got it.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Okay. So the root causes. So what we do in the in our practices is that we try to uproot the causes, uproot the core causes, the root causes of all the suffering, and which is of course the ignorance. But we will come to the root causes of what is the root cause and how to remove the root cause. All that it will actually come later. So this is, as I said before, this is like the diagnosis, and after the diagnosis, the doctor will recommend this and that kind of, So it will come later. So what we are going through right now is the suffering aspect, and after the suffering aspect, we will go through the remedial aspects as well. It will come later. But in general, the question was exactly the precise words of the question is that how can we ease the suffering? So that I'm going to answer that first. So in order to ease the suffering, when the suffering, when we were already born, we are already going. The moment we are born, there's no way out. We have to experience the suffering of birth, and once we experience suffering of birth, there is no way out. We have to experience the suffering of aging. We have to get old, and getting old does not mean you get old until 80 years or 90 years old. That is a good news. many of us die very young. And there is no way out, but we have to get sick. In our life, we will get sick. Maybe it's a great sickness, great malady, or maybe it's a small sickness, but we will all get sick. And we will all die. Okay? The moment we were born, we will suffer birth, we will suffer aging, we will suffer sickness, and we will suffer death. These four things are definite, certain. There's no way out of this the moment after we were born. Even if you become arhat, you still have to go through the passage of dying. Is caused by past karma. So the effect of dying is caused by past karma. So even if you become arhat, you still have to suffer pain, you still have to suffer sickness, you still have to suffer death caused by previous karma, because that cannot be reversed. But you are free from further sufferings, you are free from further death, and so on and so forth. So I'm going back to the question again. The question was, how do we ease the four sufferings? So the best way to ease the suffering is first to accept. Acceptance is the key here. So we have to accept that you have to suffer all these four sufferings. Birth, aging, sickness, death. Take that as, because we have this this body of ours, this human body, we are doomed, you might say, to suffer the force of suffering. So you must accept that. So the sooner you accept that, the easier with you. If you feel like, oh, other people are going to die, other people are going, oh, my grandfather is going to get sick, going to die. My neighbor's father is going to get sick. Or other people in India are dying. Or people in the US are dying. So when you always point it out at someone else and always try to exempt yourself from all this suffering, then you are going to suffer tremendously, indefinitely. So the best way to ease your suffering is to accept that you have to go through all this suffering. So when you accept, the pain will be inevitable. If you get sick, if you are dying, the pain is inevitable. There's no way out of that. But the suffering is optional. The pain will be there, but if you accept it as it is, then you will no longer be suffering from the inside, from mentally. There will be no agony there. The pain is there, but at the same time you have a sort of a heightened, light-hearted sort of attitude about it. You see, there are some sick people who are always complaining, who is always in a miserable state. But then there are some people, who has been sick for, who are chronically sick, but for a long time. But at the same time, they have a way of carrying themselves. So many of the great masters that maybe you have seen some of the pictures of great masters, like smiling and very light-hearted. When there's a radiance around them. When we are around them, when we are with them, we feel the radiance and we feel the energy and all that. But many of the great masters, actually, especially from many of them are no longer with us, but they were quite sick, actually, very sick. But there is a way of carrying themselves. The way of, the acceptance is very important. The first thing they have is acceptance, and there is a reason behind that. You are accepting your pain, and you are accepting your suffering, not just like, okay, I have to do it anyway. There's no other way out, so just be it. That there is one way of accepting it. I'm born as a human being, so there's no other way out. Let me accept it. What else can I do? That's a very sort of a lost kind of defeated sort of kind of perspective on accepting things. I'm defeated. I cannot do anything about this, so just let be it. There's a defeated perspective. There's a defeated perspective. Another way of looking at it is, of course, it is part of life. Death is certain, sickness is certain, aging is certain. There's nothing I can do about it. This thing I can do nothing about it. But there are so many other things that I can do about. Like helping others, like practicing, and so many other things that we can do. While I'm spending my time in the world, in this world, there are so many things that I can do to improve the life of myself and others. And I'm going to do that. And when you have that sort of motivation, that sort of purpose, then you become lighthearted in spite of all the sicknesses and all the the diagnosis, the terrible diagnosis that you have just heard. Okay. More questions or not? No more questions, right? No more questions, right?
Right, Rinpoche.
Okay, so let's wrap up today. Okay. Dedication, please. Gyewan diye nyodon dan lama sangye zhongyong zhowan jekyang mare bangke ge sala ge bara sho Jangju zemjo rembo je maye banama ge yoro je ke ba nyamba me ba yang kone gondo be ba sho mi me ze de je je sin te me ge John Gone Ge Be Toy Ge Toy Kai Ba Lo Zoi